Equipment is the single most important thing to have in Deepwoken. One god roll set can net you stats like 165 HP, up to 69% DVM, and over 375 ether. And you get stats this good on any build just by spending a few sessions grinding armorer's needles. Which is another guide that I've also dropped at the same time as this video to teach you how to actually get the resources to make this insanely strong gear. But in this video, I'll be splitting it into 3 sections. The gear you equip for maximum stats, the specialist gear that you'll equip depending on your situation, and the way to ultimately distribute your pips and decide what kit is best for you. While the armorer's guide will go into detail on how to make over 100 armorer's needles per hour. So if you enjoy this video or find the information useful, make sure to like and subscribe and join the Discord for PvE builds to grind armorers. A huge thank you to the channel members, especially the kind souls on the Mega and Super tier. They actually decided this video. Anyways, let's get into the first piece of your equipment, the helmet slot. There is 2 options for this. The first is the Parasol Planter at 2 legendary and 4 rare pips, along with an innate 10 HP. This helmet is really good because of the grotesque resilience talent. This talent reduces damage over time self-damage. This includes bleed, where you just get a flat 33% reduction, which is really good. The other reason that you might equip this helmet is to reduce the self-damage on Flame Within, which makes it even better if you're using a flame build. But overall, the bleed damage reduction is the main reason you'd run it. This helmet is a very common drop from the Parasol World event in the Eastern Luminant. The other helmet is the Warlock's Brim at 3 legendary and 2 rare pips with 8 and 8 HP. This is the best helmet for DVM by 1. The Aegis of Enmity helmet is the exact same, giving you a max of 10% DVM, but this doesn't have any requirements, whereas the Aegis has fortitude requirements. So this is more worth running. This helmet is a common drop from the World Serpent boss. For the arms slot, there is yet again 2 different options. The Bastions of Enmity at 4 legendary, 2 rare, 13 and 8 HP and 2 posture for its stats. This is the best pips, plus it also has the best innate stats in the game, giving you absolutely insane amount of HP and posture. I'll talk about why posture is important at the pip part of the video. But this is a common drop from the Heart of Enmity boss. However, if you need DVM or monster armor, the Pathfinder Elite is better, at 2 legendary and 4 rare pips. You'll only run this in PvE, but it's better than the Bastions of Enmity by 1 DVM, and you can very easily get 3-star Pathfinder Elites from Wave 50 of Diluvian. For the legs, you'll either equip the War Treads of Enmity at 3 legendary, 2 rare, 8 and 8 HP, and 1 posture. This is the best for PvE, giving you 10% DVM. It's 3 HP lower than the next equipment we'll talk about, however you gain 1 more posture, so to some people it might be more worth it. This is a common drop from the Heart of Enmity. But if you just want pure HP, Imperial Boots, Star Boots, or Abyss Wanderer is the best in slot at 2 legendary, 4 rare, and 8 and 8 HP. This gives you a total of 3 more HP than the War Treads, but you get 1 less posture. All of these are a common drop from Primadon, but you can get the Abyss Wanderers from the Serum and Hollow. For your torso, the best is the Confessor's Charm at 1 legendary and 2 rare pips. This is tied with multiple things for the best in slot equipment. However, this gives you physical armor, which in my opinion is more worth running than elemental armor for general use. You can easily get this item from Chaser. However, recently there was a new bit of equipment added while I was midway through making this video, the Vault of Enmity. Now this equipment is just flat out broken at 3 rare and 3 legendary pips, which is significantly more than the Confessor's Charm. The reason I'm keeping both here is because I honestly see this equipment getting nerfed, because torsos jump from a max of 5 to 8 DVM, which is just way too high. So yeah, use this from Heart of Enmity, but I do expect this to get hit in the future because it's just way too strong. Because this came out after I was basically 99% done with the video, the final stats that I say won't include this piece of equipment, so you can just assume that it's a little bit higher. For the face mask, you can run a Hive Lord mask at 4 rare pips. This is just the best in terms of pure pips, and you can easily get it from layer 2. Or you can equip the Citadel frames. This gives you 3 rare pips, but it gives you 5 HP innately. However, it does come with one of the rare downsides for an equipment at -2 posture, which may be a price that's too high to pay for some people. For the earrings, you can either equip the Moonlit earrings at 4 rare pips and 2 innate HP, or the Old Blood earrings at 4 rare pips and 5 innate ether. One's for HP, one's for ether. It's up to what you want more of on the build. You can get both of these items from layer 2. For rings, there is 2 options for pure stats and one that's also really good for damage. If you want pure stats, you'll equip 2 moon and 2 waning rings. You can do a bug that lets you equip 2 of these same rings. I'll show how to do it on screen right now. These are the best for pips by 1. Alternatively, you can equip scaling rings that you get from Ferryman. These rings just give you plus 1.2 scaling for any of the core attributes besides Fortitude. The Moon and Waning have a max HP of 9, whereas these have a max HP of 7, so if you were to equip 4 of these, then you're only giving up 8 HP for an effective plus 1.8 scaling to your weapon. So yet again, it's up to what you prefer. While that's all the equipment, I do need to mention the Drowned enchant that you can put on them. This just gives the equipment that you put it on plus 10 HP, 10 ether, 5 DVM, and 5 monster armor. For the other enchant slots, you'll generally run viscosity and ferocity. Although in the rare cases where you don't actually want viscosity, then you'll be equipping the stench enchant. Viscosity just makes you take damage over time and gives you an extra hit that you can take before you die. Ferocity is damage reduction, and stench is just damage when it procs. So if you're running the most optimal gear purely for stats, the max that you could get would be 165 HP, 66 DVM, although equipping the Diver's Ring you can get 69% in the depths, 375 ether, or 37 monster armor. So yeah, that's some pretty good stats you can get from a god roll set. Not to mention with the deposit box, you can pass it around your accounts really easily. But now let's get on to the specialist equipment. Specialist equipment generally has worse stats, but has better passives. So depending on your situation, it's worth running 1 or 2 of these. For the head equipment, first you have the Deep Scorn Cask at 2 legendary and 3 rare pips with 8 and 8 HP. This is good because of the already dead talent. It reduces all self damage, not just damage over time. So it's really good for a link strider because you can heal people while taking less damage, not to mention using Shade Devour and Raging Static to take less self damage. It's a little more situational than Parasol Planter because you also don't get the bleed damage reduction, but it can be good for support builds. And you'll get this helmet pretty commonly from the Deep Spindle event. Next is the Grand Fisher helmet at 2 legendary, 3 rare pips, and 8 and 8 HP. You'll use this purely to get less parasites on layer 2. Because of the way the anti-cheat works, when performing the extremely high speed maneuvers of layer 2 speedrunning, you'll very often get anti-cheated. However, if you don't have parasites on you, for some reason you just don't. So that's why this helmet is useful. And the final one is the Bloodforged Crown at 2 legendary, 3 rare pips, and 8 and 8 HP. This just gives you the Cauterized Wounds talent for free. So it's really useful on Bloodrend or the No Life King enchant. It's a rare drop from Chaser, like really rare. For arms, we've only got the Warlock's Mantle at 3 legendary, 3 rare, and 10 and 8 HP. This is good because of the overflowing damn talent. It's mainly useful in PvE, but on M1 builds where DVM doesn't matter, so whenever you're fighting Chaser or Duke, this equipment can give you a 15% damage buff for basically free. Skipping past the legs because there's nothing there, we have the torso, where first we have the Whistling Pendant at 2 rare pips. This just gives you a auto parry shield whenever you do enough damage. It's really strong in both PvP and PvE because you can essentially just M1 through stuff. It's definitely the best in-slot equipment if you're not particularly looking for the best stats. although it's only slightly worse than the Confessor's Charm. The only place this isn't good is the Diluvian. This is a really rare drop from Duke and Etheron, however, you're probably going to have a better time getting this equipment if you just farm Duke. Next is the Tyrian Pendant at 1 legendary and 2 rare pips. The pendant allows you to take 0 fall damage, but there is a cap to how much you can take before the equipment breaks. Then you'll have to wait a few minutes for it to regen before you can negate fall damage again. This equipment is really good for ganks because you can essentially just jump off cliffs, and if your opponent doesn't have it, then they're going to take a lot of damage. And it's also good for layer 2 speedrunning, as you can cancel the full damage downside from flinging yourself across the map. This is a pretty common drop from Promodon. For face, we only have the Thrall of Enmity at 3 rare pips. This gives you the Lose Your Mind talent, which can allow you to deal up to 15% more damage at max insanity. So you're giving up 1 pip instead of the Hive Lord mask, but you're gaining a potential 15% more damage. So it's worth it depending on if you're running a build that goes insane. This is a somewhat rare drop from the Heart of Enmity. For rings, we have a lot, so I'll go through this fast. The Ring of Pestilence at 2 rare pips. This provides you 15% anti-heal on M1. It's good if you're not running All the Dead Gods or Frostbite. If you're wondering, the ring doesn't cancel Chase's healing. This and the next 4 rings are all pretty common from Promodon. An Ishian's Ring at 2 rare pips. This just makes you take 25% more damage but deal 20% more damage. You'll always want to use this against bosses, but you'll only use it in PvP, Hell Mode, or the Diluvian if you're good enough at dealing more damage than you take. A Ring of Casters at 2 rare pips. You get 10% more mantra damage but minus 10% M1 damage. Use this if the majority of your damage is from mantras. However, you can use this on M1 focused builds if you can stack 210 true damage multipliers, or get 185% effective. If you don't know, multipliers are half as effective above 150% and cap out at 175%. Just use the Buildmaker multipliers thing to roughly gauge if you should equip this. The Diver's Ring at 2 rare pips. This gives you 5% more DVM in depths. It also works in layer 2 in the Diluvian. A Cogner's Clutch Ring at 2 rare pips. It allows you to slide for more mobility. Use this depending on your playstyle, and it's also good for speedruns. A Poser's Ring at 2 rare pips if you're using the Katana. Deep Fire Ring at 2 rare pips if you're using Flame. And that is all of the specialist rings. Yeah, there was quite a lot. You don't have to run all of these, but you can depending on your playstyle. And I'm sure there's other rings like the Charged Ring or the Blood Iron Ring that will be good depending on your circumstances. There is certainly more specialist equipments with even more niche uses, but these are the main ones. But now that you know everything that you can run, let's go over pip distribution. Starting off with the max HP kit. You'll basically always want to use a max HP kit in PvP. And you can also use it if you want to be safe against humanoids in PvE, since they don't take DVM damage. However, on a PvP build, you will want to run more posture over just raw HP. So if you allocate the legendary pip on your rings to posture, it can allow you to get +2 posture per ring. And you'll also want to run the Hive Lord mask over the Citadel frames. There isn't a set number of posture that you should be aiming for, but just using this equipment, you can effectively gain 8 more posture on the build, which is pretty good. I should also state before someone tries to do the math that all of the pips on an equipment can't be on one thing. There was some stat diversity update they pushed a while ago, so you'll essentially allocate the final lowest tier pip on your HP sets to something like physical armor for PvP, just because you're less likely to fight elemental damage. And you'll do the same thing on a PvE kit. This just gives you the maximum amount of defense and covers the majority of things you'll fight. For the Ether kit, you'll use this for PvE against humanoids if you don't want any more HP. For the final pip on an Ether kit, just use HP. However, I will state that there is sanity pips for ears, rings, and face masks. On a rare sanity pip, you'll also gain 3 ether. In PvE, you'll of course use the Diver's Ring for anything depths related. You'll either choose between running DVM for pure damage or monster armor if you want some defense. For a pure DVM kit, the final pip can either be ether if you want to cast your mantras with slightly less cost, or monster armor if you want to gain a little bit of defense. However, with monster armor pips, they can only be applied to rare pips on head and arms, so you can't actually gain that much monster armor. I should also state that for some reason, even when using a gilded needle, it seems that the head equipment can bug and just not give you the 4th monster armor pip. So on all the legendary pips on a monster armor set, you'll run DVM, just so you have a good balance of defense and damage. This is typically the kit that you'll run in the Diluvian. You might be wondering, why not make a max fizz or elemental resistance kit? Well, you can, but I honestly don't recommend it. Just because unless you know that you're only fighting Silent Hearts or you're only fighting mages, HP just gives you a good way to resist both types of damage. But there's nothing stopping you from making one if you farm too many armors from the methods I'll share. So with this all covered, now you know how to gain the absolute most out of your equipment in Deepwoken. You do have to remember that the final stats I gave are assuming the maximum possible stat gear. So for the HP, it's probably going to be something like 10 lower, just because you do want to get more posture on the build over raw HP. And you'll likely sub in some amount of specialist equipment depending on what you're doing. But if you take the time to farm armorers, then you'll be one of the strongest players around and have an advantage over everyone with a worse kit than you. So now that you know the best equipment to use, make sure you check out the Armorer's Guide. I dropped both of these at the same time, as this video was just so long I had to split it into 2. It's in the middle of the screen now for you to click and watch, as this guide can teach you how to get over 100 Armorer's Needles per hour consistently. So make sure you like and subscribe, join the Discord for some PvE builds, consider becoming a channel member, and I'll see you at the Armorer's Guide.